Good evening.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to Sunday Night Satsang with myself, John Homewood, and
Michelle. I hope you
Michelle.
can see us and hear us.
Yeah, just let us know if you can see and hear us. I know with the internet we have load shedding at the moment, which means that our signal is quite low.
There's somebody here. Two people.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Well, those two people.
Yeah.
Let us know, please, where you're from and who's with us. Because we don't have any way of knowing that, so it's lovely to know who's joining us.
Yeah, we love to get the hearts and we love to get the comments. We don't always get to all the comments while we're live, but we do get to them a little bit later. Hello, Claire.
Hi, Tanis. Hi, Claire.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so last week we were away on retreat at the Buddhist Retreat Center in Limpopo in KZN, and it was absolutely beautiful there. If you get the opportunity of visiting the BRC, please do. And we're there every year, so please
come and join us.
Come and join us next year. Yeah.
It'll be probably May next year.
Really beautiful. And the main reason for going there is the food.
The food's amazing.
How's the food?
We ate so much food.
Yeah, you get used to 3 meals cooked for you every day. Really healthy, lovely meals. Yeah. Who's that?
Cool.
Hello, Sandra. Yeah. Hello.
If we should disappear, because it does happen during load shedding sometimes, we do our best. We have got load shedding. If we should disappear, please just stay on the page, on our Journeys of Awakening page,
Shirley.
and we'll come back, hopefully.
Yeah, just stay there. Because we did drop out 2 weeks ago when we were there.
We were talking to fresh air for a while.
Yeah, that's right, and we didn't realize that.
Hi,
so thank you for joining us. Thank you. Tonight we're talking about?
Listening.
What are you listening? Are you listening? That's a big question. Hello, Diane. Diane was with us on the BRC retreat. Yeah. So welcome, everyone.
And Shirley,
nice to be back with you.
Nice to have you with us. Also on our retreat with us.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So let's start this evening, as we always do, by becoming aware of presence. The only problem we have in life is the thinking mind, and presence is the way of coming out of the thinking mind and back into reality. So let's just spend a short while together, just bring our awareness from our story of yesterday into tomorrow, withdrawing our mind from all of the times and all of the places, just becoming centered in the here and now, in alignment with life. Hello, Maria. Nice to see you. So just gently maybe close your eyes and just connect in with the 5 senses of the body. One of the ways of stilling the mind, a very powerful way of stilling the mind, is to take your hands and hold them just in front of you, about 6 inches apart. And feel the space between your hands. You might like to widen your hands slightly and then bring them back and compress them, and just see if you can feel yourself compressing a ball of energy between your hands. In order to truly feel this energy, one has to become very quiet and very still inside. You can try this exercise whenever you're stressed or anxious. Just do this exercise of feeling the chi between your hands. As you do it, it may actually become very solid. You may really feel a very solid ball of energy between your hands that almost prevent your hands from coming together. It's a very quick way of becoming present. We cannot truly feel energy if we're not present. Let's take this ball of energy and just bring it into our chest, into our heart. You might like to drop your hands onto your laps and take a very deep breath in and a long breath out. And just see how you feel in this moment. Just doing that exercise by feeling the chi energy between our hands can help connect us to the stillness within and allow us to access a greater level of ease and peace. And let's continue to use the portal of the five senses to bring us into the present moment. We were feeling with our hands. Let's feel with our feet now. Let's feel where our feet are resting right now. Let's feel the chair or bed or floor that we're sitting on. Feel it under your bums. If you're sitting back in the chair, you may also connect with the backrest of the chair. This is another exercise you can do during the day, particularly if you are working in an office and there's a certain level of tension or stress in you. Just connect with the chair that you're sitting on. This brings your awareness out from the world of things into the awareness of presence, because you can't truly feel the chair you're sitting on unless you're present. Let's bring our awareness now to any pictures or colors you can see behind your eyelids. If your eyelids are gently closed, you may be able to pick up some swirling colors or images. Let's bring your awareness to rest in that area. Let's take another very deep breath in. A long breath out. And now let us bring our awareness to our ears, to the faculty of listening. You can hear these words that are being spoken. But between the words, there's a space, a stillness. Just see if there are any other sounds that you can hear in the space between these words. And now just become aware of the space itself. Bring your full attention to the space between these words. And just notice that as we become aware of the space, the space seems to open up within us. We become aware of the space within that listens. Take another deep breath in, long breath out. As we start to value the spaces between things, the spaces between words, the space between the notes of music. So we increase the space within us. And then there's the realization that we are the space. When all thoughts subside, we are left with awareness. And the greatest realization is that we are this awareness. We are the space. We are the emptiness, the stillness, the peace. It's our true essence. It's our true beingness. Notice the beauty in the space. Notice how beautiful it is to be quiet and still inside. If you still have thoughts going through your mind, just notice the space between the thoughts. You might like to say, I wonder what my next thought is going to be. Just notice the space that opens up between the wondering and the next thought appearing. This space is where we meet. We all meet in this space. The emptiness. And another word for opening up and becoming aware of this space that joins us all in emptiness is the word love. We all meet in the space of love. This inner space. Take a deep breath in and a long breath out. And keeping this awareness of spaciousness, of listening within us, we can open our eyes. Just see how you feel in this moment. You feel a bit more calmer, a bit more centered, a bit more balanced, hopefully. Thank you for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks,
Yes. Hi.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. We can see some of you, if you haven't told us who you are and you are here, please let us know. Otherwise we don't know who's here.
Yeah.
Unless you tell us.
Yeah. We love knowing who we're talking to rather than talking to just a screen.
Like we're speaking to space.
And thank you for those. What's wrong with space?
Space is fine, but
Okay.
it's nice to know that there's some beings in the space.
Okay, all right. We love to get some hearts in the space as well. We love it, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Do we have anything happening in the stars?
To be honest, I haven't looked.
Okay. Well,
I do know that the sun's going through Gemini, obviously.
Really?
Because it's Gemini month, which is
Okay.
why we're focusing on communication and stories and listening.
Well, I
tonight.
should know that. I have two kids who are in Gemini.
You do.
I have a
Indeed.
son and a daughter, two
Indeed
Geminis.
you do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing I know about the stars is that right now the sun has set.
That's true.
I noticed that. It gets
profound.
dark outside. Yeah, that's my knowledge of astrology.
Doing well.
Hey, I know, I think so. Yeah. There is a beautiful opportunity after the sun has set, when the sky becomes black, to look out into the night sky and notice all the stars. And they're beautiful and twinkling and so mysterious and so far away and so mystical. And then notice the space between the stars. Notice the immensity of the space between the stars. And in noticing that space between the stars, notice how much quieter and stiller we become inside when we look into that vastness of space. And that's another beautiful portal into this place of presence. Because to be aware of space, we have to be present. So if you have the opportunity of having clear skies, and the opportunity of going outside and looking at that sky at night, do so. And as you look into that spaciousness, pay particular attention to the spaciousness within you that gets activated by witnessing the spaciousness out there. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It actually opens the heart. You feel the heart opening as you realize the immensity of the depth of space itself. Yeah, beautiful.
As you did with the meditation, if you find the spaces in between the words and in between the notes, which is what makes music. Without spaces, there wouldn't be any music. The spaces between everything. That's what really makes love, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I know in teaching public speaking in the course, I always point out the power of the pause in communication. Now the mind only really values objects, and words for the mind are objects, so it loves to fill all the spaces with words. And people quite often value communication by the amount of words that one manages to fit into a certain time period. But words are probably the least effective means of communication. Presence is far more effective in communication than the actual words. And so when we are speaking, just be aware of bringing in that spacious pause into the presentation. Pause. Because what pause does is it adds power. Because when you pause, people truly listen. People get sucked into that spaciousness. And that's where true listening takes place. So in our communication, whether it's public speaking or whether it's speaking to your spouse or speaking to your children, remember to bring in the space, the emptiness, knowing that in that emptiness, that is the opportunity for true listening.
Now, isn't it when we're filling up all the spaces, it generally means that we're not listening, because if we are immediately responding to somebody without a space, we haven't been listening, because we're too busy trying to actually comment on what we have in our minds, which means we're not listening. And I believe that most communication issues come from not listening. So we're not really present with what the other person is saying, and we're not present with what we're going through either. So there's not enough listening, and that's what creates the issues in communication. If you really think about it, I believe that that's the main thing. Yeah. So we just want to talk about that because it's so vital. I mean, listening in the biggest sense of listening on its own brings you into presence. So if you listen to the spaces, it automatically brings you into presence. If you slow down and allow those pauses to come into your communication, it automatically brings you into presence. But we are so busy filling the gaps. It's almost like we've got this thing where we have to fill the gaps. We can't allow there to be a moment's silence or a moment where nobody says anything because we're uncomfortable. We feel like we need to fill a space. So what if we were just able to allow those pauses to be there and not say anything until you're ready to say something, but not to feel pressured. It's almost, I watch a lot of communication, and it's almost like the pause it's something that's got to be filled. It's like that present state. You've got to avoid the present state. It's like you leap over the present state to get to the next thing. And it's a similar thing in a conversation. You can't wait for the person to finish what they're saying because you want to jump forward and give your opinion, give your perspective, as opposed to just letting the conversation flow.
Yeah, it's true, because the mind overvalues things. The mind, in fact, really only values things. And words are things. And the pause is a no-thingness. Listening, true listening, is a no-thingness. And the mind doesn't really value no-thingnesses. So therefore it tries to fill every space with either a word or a thought. So you can be in the act of listening, but while you're listening, you're actually strategizing what you're going to say next. What story can I say next? How can I defend myself in that moment? How can I counter their situation? What is the strategy that I need to embark on in this moment, in this communication? But true listening is actually just allowing this moment to be exactly as it is. Allowing the stillness to be exactly as it is. And allowing the other person's communication to you to land in the quietness and the stillness of the present moment. And something happens when you go into the stillness of listening, the true stillness of listening. Something opens up and a real communication takes place. You see, most of us believe that communication happens through the faculty of the ears and the faculty given to us by the mouth, speaking and listening. But real communication actually happens when we enter the state of stillness and our heart opens. And through the heart opening, that's where real communication takes place. And it can't take place. The heart doesn't open when we're too busy in the head. We're too busy strategizing what we're going to say next, or filling every moment with words, with sound. So we limit communication through speaking. And we open communication by listening. And we know that that a lot of problems in relationships are created by too much speaking and not enough listening.
In fact, if you think back when you met your loved one, or when you were in love, that first candlelight dinner that you had, you were both listening intently to what the other person had to say. You would have been fully focused and hanging on their words to actually find out about them. There's this open receptivity and open-heartedness where you're listening, you're really listening to someone. Even when you meet somebody as a friend for the first time, there's an attention focus on exactly what that person's saying, without trying to interrupt, without trying to better or to counter or to prove yourself. There's an openness. And I think as we get to know each other and we get to know each other's stories, and we've heard the same story a few times, there's that kind of zoning out that happens. And I believe that's the point at which relationships start to suffer, where you're not actually making eye contact anymore. And you often hear people that have been in a relationship for a long time saying, "You're not listening to me." Why? It's because we think we know what the other person's going to say. So it's actually to just be open to every moment as a new moment, even with somebody who you know well. And to allow new stuff to come through.
Yeah, true listening.
Yeah.
True listening takes place in presence.
Yeah, it can only.
While the mind, with thinking, is only really real in time. So you have time on the one hand and you have presence on the other. And we think that the mind is the most vital organ in communication, when it isn't. It's in fact the stillness that comes from the heart. So if you really want to listen, we have to drop down out of the thinking mind into this heart space and allow the stillness to arise within our awareness. Because in stillness, we truly hear what's being said, not through the filters of the past, not through the filters of expectation, not through the filters that need to be justified or where one feels threatened through. You just listen with open receptivity. And then you activate the stillness within yourself, and that enables you to truly hear what's being said in these moments, what's being communicated to you in this moment, here and now. So true listening doesn't happen through the head, it happens through the heart. And the heart is always in alignment with the present moment, unlike the mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think true listening, it becomes, I think the more you go into stillness, I mean, we've spent over a week at the Buddhist Retreat Center, and we had a 4-day retreat, which is amazing. And we kept on going into presence. So those of you that are on the call tonight that were with us, I know there are a few of you, you would have seen that eventually it starts to become, you want to go into that state because it's a state of peace. And the mind just quietens a little bit. And these spaces in between all the busyness. And you start to actually go into that place much easier and much quicker. But then as soon as you come out of it, there's that tendency to go straight back into that communication. I say something, you say something, I say something, you say something. And how often do we actually just listen or just not say anything? How often are we alone or just in our own space without a device in our hands, without trying to write anything, read anything, explain anything? How often do we give ourselves those times, those pauses? And it's just so interesting on a retreat when you see when people arrive how stressed they are, and a day and a half later they are different. You can actually see it in their being. You can see it in their faces. Their faces start to lighten and brighten, and the tension starts to just disappear after a little bit. So it doesn't take that much, actually. It just takes a consistent coming back to, isn't it, to the spaces, to the pause. We often say the pause because it's such an easy way of going into presence.
Yeah.
Just pausing. Just, if you don't have anything to say or you're not sure what to say, just pause. Just be quiet. You don't have to always say something. And I think we feel insecure sometimes when we haven't got anything to say. It's almost like a conditioned thing.
Yeah, because the mind values things. So the mind will value words. It'll value the act of communication. It won't value the being of communication. And the question for tonight is, are you listening? That's a big question. Are you listening? Are you listening to other people? In which case, one has to become more receptive to the silence which listens. And are you listening to life, to the guidance of life? Are you quiet enough inside to hear the whisper of intuitive awareness? And the other one is, are you quiet enough to listen to the divine in your life? They say God speaks to us in stillness. All else is a bad translation. I love that. I love that. Words, even the written word, is a bad translation of the divine. But in stillness, there's pure truth. Pure truth. And are you listening? Are you listening to what the other has to say to you? Are you listening to what life is saying to you in this moment? And are you listening to what the divine has to say in this moment, here and now? And all three of those require quietness. They require the stillness, the emptiness of being, to truly hear what's being communicated in this moment. So the question is, are you prepared to truly listen?
Yeah, and sometimes it's making a commitment to just be quiet for a certain time a day, maybe a few times a day, or maybe bringing, as Karina says there, sitting quietly with someone without speaking and getting more comfortable with that instead of trying to fill the spaces. Because very often we'll be out for a walk in nature or something, and there'll be an ongoing commentary about, did you see the flower, did you see the sky, did you see the tree, look at that, isn't that amazing? And it's lovely, but sometimes it's nice to just walk in nature or sit in nature without saying anything and allowing nature, because in those moments for me it's where nature actually speaks to us. Nature shows us, and that's where your intuitive voice comes through when you're not in too much noise, when you're not making too much noise. That's when we hear those, because it doesn't shout. It's usually a whisper, and you've got to be quiet to hear that whisper. Wow, Tanya, well done. Congratulations. Tanya's just had two
Lovely.
Baby girls,
Beautiful.
twins.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Wow.
that's wonderful. Thanks for telling us,
Lovely.
Tanya.
That's really a very good
What
news.
a beautiful,
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Well done. Well done.
Awesome.
2 new blessings in the world.
2
Congratulations.
little Geminis.
Or 4.
What? Because they're twins.
They're twins, yeah. Gemini.
You
Gemini.
got 2 of each.
You got 2 for the price of 1. You got 4.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely. So just talking about walking in nature, you know, in my younger days I used to hike quite a lot, and I used to prefer to be right out front or right at the back, because when one was walking in the group in the middle, there was just so much talking. There was very little presence, I found. The people weren't even on the hike. They were in their stories, in their, and it was in the relating of the problems, etc., regurgitation of story. And that really, for me, wasn't what hiking in nature was all about. It was to experience that stillness. So that's why I used to either walk way ahead of everyone else or hang right the way back. Just to be, as Michelle said, in the stillness of nature, just the quietness of nature. Nature really is such a powerful opening to true listening to the quietness and the stillness, instead of making the noise. And the mind, as I said earlier, values things. It values objects. It values things that you can put labels on. And true stillness, you can't really label. Although we put the word stillness on it, it's far deeper than a word, far, far deeper than that. And so one mustn't expect the mind to give you permission to listen, because the mind will never voluntarily listen, because it only values things, values words. And so it's to consciously put your hands on the steering wheel of your attention, your awareness, and steer it back into what I call the vertical plane, the plane of beingness, of quietness, of love, of stillness, instead of being caught up in the mind's story. And that has to be a conscious decision on your part. And I absolutely guarantee you, as you start to value this true act of listening, which is just awareness, your relationships will improve, your access to intuitive guidance will improve, and as a result of that, your life will start to flow more smoothly, just through the act of listening. So the question is, are you listening? Are you prepared to drop the stories of the mind in this moment, here and now, and just truly listen?
I think we feel very often, that if somebody that we in a relationship with, or someone that we know, has something on their minds that they need to talk about, we often feel that we need to fix it. We need to come up with solutions, suggestions, plans. And actually, usually, when someone needs to talk, the most nurturing thing that you can do is nothing. Sometimes it's just to sit there and listen, and not to offer any advice. Because very often you might have found, I know I have, when that's enabled, when someone's able to just talk and just share their heart, whatever's on their heart with you, there's that very often as they're talking, they'll actually start getting solutions of their own without your help. But there's sort of an insecurity that we need to, what can I say? Well, how can I help this person? How can I fix this person? And that's actually kind of stopping their process in a way. So sometimes it's just being open and sitting back, leaning back and listening. You don't have to say anything. It's a huge relief as well. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to butt in, as I said, because if you're butting in, you're not listening. And that's the opposite of empathy and nurturing. That's saying, I know better than you, or this that you're saying is not important and I don't care about it, because my opinion's more important than yours. So can we just be open and more kind to people that are speaking with us, and to ourselves? Can we give ourselves that presence, that we can actually just listen to what's actually going on for ourselves as well?
Yeah, and in that it goes to, if you're having a disagreement with someone, if you're in an argument with someone in that moment, and then suddenly you remember, what were they talking about on Satsang? Stillness, true listening. And you just really start listening to what the other person is saying, and you become still and quiet inside. Instead of trying to defend yourself or justify yourself, just go into stillness. Now, it may well be perceived incorrectly by the other. They may think that you're giving them a silent treatment. But if you are able to just truly enter the state of presence with them and hold that space, you may well find that by you becoming the true listener, with open attentiveness in what is being said that your heart opens. And as your heart opens, it may well soften the heart of the other person. And you might find a subsidence, a lessening in that energy of conflict between the two of you. So just try that. You will find that you will more than likely experience miraculous shifts in the energy by truly listening. Instead of strategizing or justifying or defending, just listening to the other in their anger, in their maybe unconsciousness. And we talk about the pain body. The pain body takes one's unconscious. And you may well just open the space for them to become more aware, for them to step into your presence. So that is a powerful tool in dealing with conflict. Don't expect there to be necessarily a buy-in from the other person into you stepping into your presence, but do it anyway. Do it anyway.
I think it's also got a lot to do with body language. In NLP, you learn rapport, and rapport is something that we know naturally how to do. But it's being in rapport is where you're in rapport with the other person. So if the other person's speaking loudly, you maybe speak a little bit loudly. You actually get into rapport with them. So if you are sitting listening, but you're sitting listening like this, with hard eyes, that's not going to ease communication, because it's almost like you irritated and you don't really want to listen. So it appears that you're present, but you're not really, because you're not open. So open communication and proper listening is openness. It's not waiting for the person to finish or thinking that you know what they're going to say, because they might not be say what you think they're going to say. So that's just something. It's body language is sometimes more important than even stillness. Is actually opening, softening our eyes, opening our body, opening, so that we're actually really present, like we were on that first date. We were hanging on each other's every word. That was real listening, because we were truly interested in what the other person had to say. So I can't read that message there. Please, could you talk more about? I don't know how we finished reading the message.
No, I don't know.
We could just see, please, could you talk more about?
We can't read the rest of that.
The other thing is that when you are listening to somebody talking, a good method to employ is to, especially if it's a conflictory kind of relationship, or one that sometimes you have conflict or misunderstanding, is to repeat what the other person said. So it can be a bit irritating, but if you put the irritation aside, it shows that you're listening. So in other words, you say something and then the other person says, am I correct that this is what you said? And you repeat what they said. That enables the communication to continue, because there's an acknowledgement that the person actually said that, and that you've seen it and you've heard it. So it's another method that we can use to foster understanding.
Yeah, and just going back to in a conflict situation, you quite often find that there's a sense of frustration, and one thinks that if one talks a bit louder, you're going to get your message across more effectively. But in truth, talking quieter actually brings more attentiveness in the other person who is maybe in communication with you. So, and actually, if you get into a conflict situation, the natural response is to speak louder, to become more forceful. But I'm going to suggest that a more effective way of communicating in that moment is to become quieter, to add more pauses between your words. And I think that will automatically soften that communication between you and the other one that you're communicating to. Try it and let us know how it works.
Other things like making eye contact, If you're really listening, you're probably going to be looking at the person. You're not going to be looking out the window like that, which is dismissive. So how often do we do that, especially in older relationships? So it's to become more aware, I think, because you get into those patterns of not listening to each other, not listening to ourselves. So it's just to become more aware. So I'm not sure who's typed that in, but I think you're saying you would like us to talk more on listening to our heart and gut wisdom. So the only time we're going to be in our heart wisdom is in presence. If we're going backwards and forwards, we're not. We're in our heads. So if we're playing a ping pong match in our minds, we're in our heads. We've got to drop that attention and focus into our heart and be quiet and present and see what arises from that.
Yeah, true communication always makes the present moment more important than yesterday or to tomorrow. True communication makes this moment more important than the previous moment or the next moment. To invest our awareness more fully in the isness of this moment definitely improves communication. We can't truly listen unless we are present. And as I said, don't expect the mind to give you permission to listen, because the mind is only about stories. The heart is about the present moment. And it's through presence that we find the ability to truly comprehend what's being communicated to us in that moment. And I just want to add is that people often think that communication is about understanding. And while understanding is important, yes, it is important, presence is even more important. For while understanding takes place in the mind, presence opens the portal to the heart. And the heart is where real communication takes place, heart to heart, not necessarily head to head. Head's important, yes, it is important, but the heart is more important. Presence is more important than understanding.
And most of us just want to be heard. So, whether you understand or agree is secondary. I've heard what you've said. Thank you. That's usually enough. It's not necessary that you understand it or agree with it, and you don't have to say that whether you do or whether you don't. Why do you have to say that? Why can't you just say, yes, I've heard you. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree.
Yeah.
So I think all of us need to focus more on communication, because it gets, I think as we get more into this techno age, we're also getting bombarded with information all the time, and we forget that we can actually just take time to be and to listen to the spaces and to pause.
Yeah. True listening always takes place in the pause, not in the act of responding to what's been said, but in the pause. In the pause. And allow your mind to go completely empty. Don't take the opportunity in the pause to strategize what you're going to say next, or to practice what you're going to say next. That's not listening. Listening is just pausing completely, stopping all thought in that moment, and just being with the words that are coming into, or the sounds that are coming into your awareness. Same as, for example, listening to music. If you really want to listen to the depth of music, just make the note that's unfolding in your awareness now more important than any other note. Just this moment. If you're in nature, allow this moment to be more important than any previous moment or any next moment. Because what the mind will do if you're walking in nature, it will start comparing this moment to another moment. And it'll judge this moment possibly to be better or less than another moment. That's again the mind. But if you really want to elevate your level of awareness, your level of awakening, make listening more important in stillness than any form of understanding or judgment. Listening is a process of emptying yourself and allowing the awareness of receptivity to be there in that moment. Just allowing that stillness to be. We truly listen when we are still. No other time do we truly listen.
So maybe that's a good way of starting our week this week, is to set the intention to listen more. to listen to each other more, to open our hearts more, to be kinder and softer more with each other, to start again afresh each day, each moment, and to take time to pause during the day. Because it really does, it's miraculous how things change when we do that, as can be seen on a retreat.
Yeah.
After the first day, you can really start to see people shifting. Because as they start to go into more presence, their hearts start to open, and as their hearts start to open, people start to connect at a level that they weren't connecting at before. And then the whole vibration changes, the whole frequency changes. So it's miraculous, actually.
Yeah, and healing takes place in the spaces of listening. I'm going to say that again. Healing takes place in the spaces of listening. True listening. And to Taryn, who's just had... Tanya, who's just had the babies, the twins. If you want to be the best parent ever, make listening twice as important as telling. Twice as important as talking. Make listening more important. If you are a parent out there and you want to really deepen the connection between you and your children, make listening an important part of your communication. Not with the need to respond, to justify, but just to truly listen. There's something magical that takes place in the space of true listening, and that is called love. Love happens through true listening.
Just a technique that we have shared before, but if you're in a relationship, most of us are in a relationship with somebody, to actually take time to check in with each other, which means one of the ways that you can do that is just to be present for the other person to check in with you, to say how they are today. So you do it in the morning, you can do it in the evening, where there is no response from the other person. So it doesn't then go into a dialogue. You don't then go into a dialogue. So the one person might say, I'm not feeling very well, I didn't sleep well last night, or whatever it is. You don't then go into a dialogue about how they could sleep better, why didn't they sleep well. It's just, I've listened, I've heard what you said. I know where you're at. And then when it's your chance, you share. Because what that does is it takes away the assumptions. So if, for example, you're in a grumpy mood and you say to your partner or your children or whoever it is, I'm feeling a little bit grumpy today, they know how you're feeling. They also know then that it's not because of them or anything they've done. They're aware of the fact that you're feeling the way you're feeling. There's no fixing, there's no judging, there's no blaming. And so that really opens the door to really good non-verbal communication after that. Because then you don't have to keep on asking, what did I do wrong? Why are you so grumpy? Because you already know. And so it opens up for vulnerability and honesty and authenticity as well. If we can do that without speaking, that's the trick. Because most of us will comment and then there'll be a dialogue, which is fine. But if you do it without that, so you make a concerted time where you just check in and you listen to each other for a couple of minutes. That's it. And then you leave it. And you each go your own way. Knowing how you're feeling. Or knowing what's going on for you. It's really good.
So true listening is an act not so much of understanding, but of presence, of emptiness. Yes. And in that emptiness, there is love. And love is true communication. So start to value the stillness of true listening, and you will increase the level of your experience of love in life. Hopefully you found tonight's satsang of benefit and of help, and if you have, can you press the like and the share button? Please just share it. That really does help get the word out. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel.
And please comment. That also helps.
And subscribe and press the bell, the notification bell.
Yeah.
So we've got some cards now. Got some cards, and we're going to choose an
before
affirmation.
we go, if you aren't on our Inner Space community, this month we are focusing on rewriting our story. It's a really good month, and we'd love to have you with us. So if you would like to, you can join us by going to journeysofawakening.com, and all the details are there. We meet for the first time this coming Tuesday, and then again on the 27th, I think it is.
Yeah, so we have a live Zoom meeting.
Two Zoom calls.
We have a live Zoom meetup on Tuesday at 7 p.m. South African time.
And that's where we take questions and answers and do a bit of coaching live on the call.
And life guidance. Yeah. So I'm going to choose a card now. I'm going to choose that card.
I'm going to put that into now.
Here's the card for today.
Okay, good. All right, I'll just see you out. So let's just settle in. I have to lean forward a bit. And take a deep, beautiful breath in. And a releasing out breath. Releasing, releasing, releasing. And then another deep, beautiful breath in. At the top of the breath, pause for a moment. And then let the breath out. Let all the breath out. And then pause after the out breath. And then breathe in. And after you've breathed in fully, pause. And then breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out. Let go, let go, let go. And pause at the end of the out breath. And then just allow the breath to flow naturally, in and out. Just becoming more and more aware of the pauses. Not forcing them, not trying to make them longer, just being aware of them. Noticing how naturally there's a pause in between the breaths. As we slow everything down, softening and relaxing our bodies, opening our hearts. And just settling into this very quiet place. Listening to the silence. Listening to the spaces. Even if there are sounds, there's always some silence underneath and in between the sounds. Listening to this silence creates silence within us. So listening to the sounds that you can hear, with deep attention. Full focus on whatever you can hear in this moment. Listening so attentively that you might even start to hear the sound of your own heart beating. And as you listen, relaxing more and more into this present moment. Into open receptivity. In this place of open receptivity, you might hear a word just for you in this moment. Might just be a knowing. If there's a word, give thanks for the word, and if there isn't, that's fine too. Listening again, just to the silence. And focusing on the out breath, relaxing and releasing on each out breath. Feeling yourself coming home to who you really are, beneath the noise. Listening with loving presence. Our affirmation for the evening is, I am willing to give up my need for more and future. Thus I heal and find peace here and now. I am willing to give up my need for more and future. Thus I heal and find peace here and now. Feeling and connecting with that peace inside you. And carrying that peace into your evening and into your week. As we set an intention to listen more carefully, to listen more openly, to listen more kindly, and to open our hearts to love. Taking a deep breath in and out. When you're ready, open your eyes.
Thank you, that was lovely. That was a lovely meditation, wasn't it? And these affirmation cards we don't choose beforehand, they're just randomly picked out of the pack. And tonight I think it's very much in alignment with that power of true listening. I am willing to give up my need for more and future. Thus I heal and find peace in the here and now. So listening is an act of healing. It's an act of love and an act of healing. Have a blessed week further, and we look forward to catching up with you next Sunday for Sunday Satsang.
Thanks everybody.
Thank
Lovely having you
you.
with
Thanks
us.
for being with us.
Thank you.
Nighty night.
Love you lots.